The sound came before the fall, a deep, metallic groan that rolled through the building like thunder trapped underground. Dr. Claire Duval pressed the elevator button again, impatient. The lights above flickered once, twice, then steadied in a dull amber glow. She exhaled, rubbing the bridge of her nose. Her scrubs were already marked with someone else's blood, and her shift was only halfway done. A trauma call had just gone up, a construction worker crushed under rebar. They were taking him to surgery on the 10th floor. She was meant to assist. She wasn't meant to share the ride. The elevator doors opened with a sluggish hiss. Inside stood Dr. Noah Reyes, sleeves rolled, mask hanging around his neck, his dark eyes unreadable as always. The kind of calm that made people love him or hate him. Claire hesitated in the doorway. Reyes, he nodded once. Duval, no emotion, just recognition. Two surgeons pretending the past didn't pulse beneath their ribs. Between them, on a stretcher, lay the patient, male, mid-40s, pale and half-conscious, with a jagged wound across his temple. His breathing was shallow, an oxygen mask fogged with each weak exhale. A nurse stepped in behind them, holding the 4-line steady. "We're going to lose him if we don't get to neuro in the next 2 minutes, then don't let go," Noah said, voice clipped. The doors closed. The elevator jolted upward. And for a moment, everything was ordinary: the rhythmic beep of the portable monitor, the smell of antiseptic and steel. Then the lights went out. The world plunged into darkness, and the sound hit like impact, a violent shudder, cables screaming, metal grinding against metal. Claire grabbed the rail as the floor dropped beneath her feet. The stretcher lurched sideways. Noah threw his body over the patient, shielding him as the elevator slammed to a stop. Silence. Heavy, suffocating silence. Then the faint hum of emergency power. Red light filled the cabin, dim and pulsing, like blood through a vein. Claire blinked through the haze. "Tell me that didn't just happen." Noah didn't move. "We're between floors." She felt her heart hammering in her throat. "You've got to be kidding me." The nurse tried the intercom. Static. No response. The lights flickered again, then steadied. The elevator was dead. Claire crouched beside the patient, checking his pulse. Weak. Thready. "He's bleeding again," she said. Pressure's dropping. Noah adjusted the mask, fingers already slick with crimson. "There's swelling." "He's herniating." "We need to relieve pressure now." "In an elevator?" He looked up at her, eyes steady, voice low. "You got a better idea?" The nurse's voice cracked. "Doctor, we don't have sterile. Sterile doesn't matter if he's dead." Noah's tone wasn't harsh. It was final. Claire stared at him, breath quickening. The air felt thinner here, the metallic walls closing in. She pulled the portable monitor closer, watching the vitals dip. "BP 80/40ths, her 42. "We're losing him," she whispered. Noah tore open the trauma pack. "Then we make this his or." He met her eyes, and for the first time since the crash, something passed between them. Not panic, not defiance. Memory. The way he used to look at her in the operating room. That quiet certainty that made her feel safe and furious at the same time. He laid out instruments on a surgical drape spread across the elevator floor. The sterile field was laughable, but his hands moved with practiced grace, even here. "Claire," he said softly, "I need your hands." 2 words she hadn't heard from him in a year. She hesitated, the sound of her name in his voice cutting deeper than the chaos. "You think we can actually?" "I think he's got 5 minutes." The nurse swallowed hard. "I'll keep pressure on the line." Claire snapped on gloves, her fingers trembling as she met Noah's gaze. For a second, the world shrank. Just the heartbeat on the monitor, the smell of blood, and his breathing beside her. "Scalpel," he said. Her hand found it without thinking. Muscle memory, instinct. He sliced cleanly through the skin above the patient's temple. Blood welled, dark and immediate. The air in the elevator thickened. Claire pressed the suction tip against the wound, the sound filling the small space with its mechanical hiss. The nurse muttered a prayer. Then the elevator creaked again. The light flickered, and the entire car groaned as if something enormous pressed against its sides. Noah didn't look up. "Keep suction," she swallowed. "You're not even worried the whole thing could drop?" He smirked, faintly tired, ironic. We'll just make sure he lives before we die. She almost smiled, then caught herself. Blood splattered across her wrist. The monitor beeped erratically. Beep, 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 beep. Noah frowned. Detach. We're losing him. He reached for the portable defibrillator, but the screen stayed dark. Power gone. Claire's voice shook. There's nothing. He cut her off. There's us. He pressed 2 fingers to the man's neck, then looked at her, the red light glinting in his eyes. Claire, compress. Her hands moved before her mind could catch up. She pressed against the man's chest as Noah stabilized. The head wound, both of them drenched in sweat and adrenaline. The air was thick with heat, metal, and something unspoken between them, the memory of the last time she'd trusted him. The monitor flatlined. Beep peep. Noah stared at it, jaw tightening. Claire whispered, he's gone, but Noah didn't move. His hands were still on the man's chest, unmoving, refusing. Reyes, she said quietly. He looked up, voice low, cracked open for the first time. Not again, and then the elevator shuddered once more, a sharp, violent jolt that made every instrument jump. The lights went out. Darkness. Darkness pressed in like water. No hum, no flicker, just the sound of breath and heartbeats that weren't there anymore. For a moment, Claire thought she could hear the cables straining above, the steel crying out as if the hospital itself were in pain. Then a click, the soft buzz of emergency backup returning, one light flickering to life, bathing everything in blood-red glow. The monitor was still flat. Beep peep. Dr. Noah Reyes didn't move. He stared at the patient's chest, still rising and falling from her last compressions. Then he whispered, we're not done. Claire swallowed hard. Noah, he's gone. There's no pulse. He didn't look at her. You ever stop before it's over? Her voice was brittle. You don't even know what over means. He ignored her. Adrenaline. She hesitated, then reached for the vial. There's barely enough. Half dose. Straight into the heart. Her hands trembled as she filled the syringe. You can't. I can. He met her eyes. You'll help me. For a second, the air between them was louder than the silence. Then she pressed the plunger, the needle sliding between his fingers. Together, they watched the liquid disappear into muscle and hope. Noah began compressions again, steady, desperate, rhythmic. Come on, he muttered. Come on. Damn it. Claire held the oxygen mask, her voice barely above a whisper. You can't save everyone. Noah didn't stop. I can try. His arms moved like clockwork, sweat dripping down his temple. The metallic tang of blood filled the elevator, mixing with the smell of ozone and rain from the storm outside. Beep! A single pulse, then another. The monitor twitched a heartbeat. Claire gasped. He's back. Noah leaned over, eyes locked on the faint rhythm. Good. Keep pressure on the incision. Don't let him slip again. She pressed a pad against the wound, her gloves slick. BP's rising. 90/60. Good. The nurse sobbed quietly in the corner, relief shaking her shoulders. But the relief didn't reach Claire. Her eyes were fixed on Noah, on the way he'd gone quiet again, staring at the patient like he'd just seen a ghost. She whispered, who was he? Noah blinked, confused. What? You're looking at him like you know him. His jaw tensed. I don't. You hesitated when he coded. I hesitated because I've been here before. His voice was sharp now, but underneath there was something else. Regret. The elevator groaned again, a deep metallic shift. Claire looked up instinctively, her pulse jumping. That doesn't sound good. Noah grabbed the wall rail. Stay still. A second later, the whole car lurched violently to the side. The patient rolled. Claire threw herself against the gurney, pinning it with her shoulder. The 4 bags swung wildly above them, slapping against the wall. Sparks flickered from a corner light, a brief flash of white that lit their faces. The nurse screamed, and then silence again. Claire's voice broke it. We're trapped in a metal box with a critical patient, a failing power line, and no idea if we're being lowered or about to fall. Noah didn't respond. He just looked at her, that unreadable calm returning. Then stop wasting time panicking. Her frustration boiled over. You think that tone still works on me? After what you did? His head snapped up. Don't start this here. Here's where it started, she shot back. In an elevator, 6 months ago, when you told me none of it mattered. The red light flickered between them, their faces fading in and out of shadow. Noah exhaled through his nose. We had a choice. You know why I don't, she interrupted. Don't turn this into one of your lectures on morality while someone's bleeding between us. Then focus on saving him. I am. She pressed the gauze tighter, meeting his eyes. But maybe I'm trying to save you too. Something broke in his expression, not visibly, but like a muscle twitch that betrayed pain. Then he turned away. Vitals, she checked. Stable. For now, he nodded, leaning back against the wall, his breath uneven. The elevator creaked again, quieter this time, as if settling into its own exhaustion. The nurse whispered, Do you think they even know we're down here? Noah looked up at the faint crack in the ceiling, the flicker of the emergency light. They'll find us, but Claire could hear the doubt in his tone. Minutes passed. The rain outside grew louder, drumming against the hospital windows. The hum of the emergency generator faded, replaced by that same low vibration through the walls as if the hospital itself was breathing. Claire finally spoke, her voice softer. You didn't freeze when he coded because of fear, did you? Noah didn't answer. You froze because it happened before. Someone else, he looked up at her, eyes dark, unreadable. Don't tell me, Noah. His voice came out low, almost a whisper. Her name was Eliza Grant. She was a med student. My patient. My mistake. Claire froze. What happened? Noah stared at the floor. I made the wrong call in surgery, she coded. I couldn't bring her back. Same injury. Same heartbeat. Same silence afterward. The words hung in the air, heavy, alive. Claire said quietly, and you kept going. Like nothing broke, his eyes lifted to hers. You don't get to break when you're the one holding the scalpel. Lightning flashed outside the small access vent, cutting through the red glow for a heartbeat, white light painting their faces like ghosts caught between worlds. Claire stared at him, something between anger and empathy flickering behind her eyes. Then she said softly, Maybe you should have. The patient moaned faintly, his eyelids fluttering. Claire leaned closer. He's coming around. Noah moved fast, checking the wound. We need to stabilize him before a crack. The ceiling vent above them burst open, a spray of dust and sparks showering down. The nurse screamed again. Noah threw himself over the patient as a loose panel crashed beside them, missing by inches. Claire's heart slammed in her chest. The light flickered one final time, then died. Darkness swallowed everything again, deeper, thicker, final. And through it, a single sound. Beep, beep, beep. But this time, it wasn't the patient's monitor. It was a signal from above, faint, metallic, and distant. Someone was trying to reach them. At first, the sound was so faint Claire thought it was her heartbeat echoing in the dark. Beep, beep, beep. Rhythmic, mechanical, not human. Noah tilted his head, eyes narrowing. That's not the monitor. It's coming from the panel, Claire said, her voice low. Up there, he stood, steadying himself against the elevator wall, and reached for the metal grate above. The red emergency light was gone, only the ghostly glow of his flashlight cutting through the dark. He aimed it upward. Dust shimmered like falling ash. Maintenance signal, he muttered. Someone's trying to reach us, then answer. He climbed onto the side rail, his body a silhouette against the dim beam. His hands fumbled with the latch, metal scraping against metal. Finally, with a sharp click, the grate gave way. A burst of cold air flooded in, tasting like rain and electricity. Noah, careful, Claire warned. He ignored her. Hello, he shouted into the vent. This is Dr. Reyes, Trauma Elevator 3. We've got one critical patient alive but unstable. Request immediate extraction. Static crackled, then a voice distorted, distant. Dr. Reyes, do you copy? The upper floors have been compromised. Fire suppression's down. You'll need to hold until we reach you, Claire blinked. Compromised? What does that mean? Noah looked down at her, face grim. It means part of the building's collapsing, the nurse whimpered, pressing her hand to her mouth. We're below that, right? Noah didn't answer. He climbed down, voice measured but taut. They'll get to us. We just need to keep him alive. Claire swallowed. That's a lot of need tos. The flashlight flickered once, then steadied. She turned it toward the patient. His skin was waxy pale, his pulse barely perceptible under her fingers. BP's dropping again. Noah checked the wound. The bandage was soaked crimson. He's bleeding internally. We need to drain the pressure, or he'll code again. We already relieved it, not enough. She looked at him, disbelief edging her voice. In a dead elevator, with no suction and no sterile field. You'll kill him. He met her gaze, unblinking. He'll die either way. I'd rather be the reason he has a chance. There was something in his tone, not arrogance, but desperation disguised as control. The sound of someone trying to rewrite the past through someone else's pulse. Claire felt anger rise, hot and familiar. You don't get to keep gambling lives to erase the one you lost. Noah's hands froze mid-motion. He didn't look up. Say that again, I said. He turned sharply, eyes catching the weak beam of light, jaw clenched. You think this is about redemption, isn't it? His silence was sharper than any retort. The patient coughed weakly, blood pooling at the edge of his lips. Claire pressed gauze under his chin, voice trembling now. We're losing time. Noah grabbed the scalpel, then stopped talking. The nurse's breath hitched. Doctor, what are you doing? Noah steadied his hands, finding his heartbeat again. He made a precise incision below the existing wound, his fingers working blind under the fading light. Blood welled instantly, warm against his gloves. Claire grabbed the flashlight, angling it toward the cut. You can't even see what you're. Trust me, he snapped. I did, she said, her voice breaking. Once, the words landed heavier than the silence. He didn't look up. You don't get to hold that against me now. I do when you keep making the same mistakes, then help me fix them. The sound of his voice, low, rough, urgent, cracked something in her resolve. She exhaled, shaking, and pressed the suction tube into his hand. Here, if this works, you owe me a lifetime of apologies. He almost smiled. If this works, I'll have time to say them. The moment fractured as the entire elevator groaned, a deep metallic rumble from above. Dust rained down from the ceiling vent. The nurse screamed, covering her head. Claire looked up. What the hell was that? Noah's voice went tight. That was the roof shifting, another crash closer this time, echoing like a giant heartbeat through the shaft. The sound of metal twisting under weight, pressures rising. Claire shouted over the noise. The building's moving. Keep your hands steady, Noah said. If he lives, we live. The logic was absurd, but she clung to it anyway. Her gloves were slick, her breath shallow. The flashlight beam trembled in her hand. Beep, beep. The monitor wavered. He's responding, Noah muttered. Just a little longer. A sudden crash shook the elevator, a violent, splintering sound. The car lurched downward a few inches, then stopped with a metallic scream. The flashlight flew from Claire's grip, rolling under the gurney. The world spun red-black again. She hit the wall, gasping. Noah, I'm here. His voice came through the dark, closer than she expected. His hand found hers in the chaos, not intentional, just instinct. Warm. Real. Their fingers locked for a second longer than necessity allowed. Claire felt her breath stutter. Don't, he didn't let go. I've got you. The moment held until the light steadied again, dim and trembling. Their hands fell apart. The nurse's voice broke the spell. Doctor, his pulse is weak again. Noah moved fast, reapplying pressure. Stay with me, come on. But Claire wasn't watching the patient anymore. She was staring at Noah, the way his lips moved soundlessly as he worked, whispering a name she couldn't quite hear. She whispered, Eliza. His eyes lifted. And then, from above, a voice echoed down the shaft, faint but clear this time. Dr. Reyes, do you read me? We're lowering a rescue cable. You'll need to stabilize before extraction. Noah exhaled, relief and exhaustion colliding. Copy that. Claire stared upward, the faint beam of light piercing through the vent, slicing the darkness like salvation. But the voice wasn't finished. There's one problem. The main support cable's been compromised. You have less than 10 minutes before the system fails. Claire froze. Fails? The line crackled. Meaning the car won't hold. Noah looked at her, calm returning in the face of catastrophe. Then we finish before it drops. The light above them flickered again, golden against the red haze. The nurse whimpered. The patient moaned. The metal above groaned like something alive. And beneath it all, Claire's whisper. What if we can't? Noah met her eyes, that same impossible steadiness. Then we fall trying. The voice from above faded into static, leaving only the sound of the rain and the soft hum of the dying machines. Doctor. Noah Reyes stood still, staring at the ceiling vent where that single thread of light trembled through the dust. 10 minutes. 10 minutes before gravity decided what mercy meant. He turned to Claire. We can't wait for them. We stabilize him here now. Her voice was a whisper. And if the floor gives first? He didn't answer. He didn't need to. The silence between them was enough, filled with all the things they didn't say when there was still time to. The nurse crouched by the wall, whispering prayers under her breath. Claire glanced at her, then at the patient, pale, motionless, the line of sutures on his temple glistening under the faint light. We need more compression on the bleed, Noah said, snapping back to control. You hold here. Claire pressed down where he pointed. Blood seeped between her fingers, warm and relentless. Pressure's not holding. Noah grabbed a surgical clamp, his hands trembling just enough for her to notice. He never trembled, not even in the worst trauma calls. Talk to me, she said softly. He didn't look up. About what? About what's really happening here, he exhaled sharply. You're bleeding out a patient. I'm trying to stop it, not him, Noah. He paused just long enough for the lie to falter. Then he forced his voice flat. This isn't about us. She met his eyes. Then why do you keep looking at me like it is? His jaw clenched. Because every time something breaks, you're standing next to me. The elevator shook again, a long, low groan that vibrated through the walls. The gurney rattled. The nurse screamed, ducking. Noah reached for the side rail, steadying himself. They're lowering the line, he said. If we can hook the stretcher, they can pull him out. Claire glanced at the patient, then the vent. You heard them. The system won't hold. We move him wrong, we all drop. Not if we balance the weight, he said quickly, already scanning the corners of the elevator. If we shift him toward the center, she cut him off, voice sharp. You're calculating weight like this is another surgery. It's not math, Noah. It's gravity. He looked at her, a faint flicker of something almost like a smile. Everything's math, even miracles. She shook her head, her voice breaking. You don't get to romanticize this. I'm not. He met her eyes. I'm trying to save what's left. Claire froze, realizing he wasn't talking about the patient anymore. The flashlight flickered again, throwing their shadows long across the blood-smeared walls. She could see the exhaustion in his face now, the gray under his eyes, the fine tremor at the edge of his jaw. How long have you been awake? She asked quietly. 36 hours. Maybe more. Jesus, Noah. He shrugged. Sleep's for people who don't hear the things I do when it's quiet. What things? He hesitated just long enough to make her believe he might actually tell her. Then he said, almost gently, voices of the ones I couldn't save. Her throat tightened. She wanted to reach for him, she didn't. The walls were closing in, the air thick and metallic, and touching him would mean remembering. A loud clank broke the silence, a rope striking metal above. Noah looked up. That's the rescue line. He climbed onto the side railing again, reaching toward the shaft. The dim beam from above cut through, a thin golden thread trembling through the dust. He caught it, wrapping it around his wrist, anchoring himself to the cable like it might pull him back to something holy. Hand me the hook, he said. Claire passed it to him. Their fingers brushed, and something electric, not just static, something human shot through her chest. Got it, he muttered, locking the hook onto the stretcher's frame. The nurse cried out, it's slipping. Claire turned. The floor beneath the gurney was bending, metal whining like it was being torn open from below. Noah, stop. He froze. The crack deepened, a dark fissure running under the wheels, splitting the panel apart. If they moved, if they shifted the wrong weight. Claire's voice was a tremor. If you lift him, the balance breaks. Noah's face was a mask of concentration, sweat gleaming under the faint light. We can't wait. He's stable now, she said, desperate. For the first time in 20 minutes. Don't move him yet, he turned, eyes blazing with that stubborn brilliance she both loved and hated. Stable isn't safe, and then the sound. A single, resonant snap. The elevator dropped to inches. Everything inside it screamed metal, glass, lungs. The nurse fell forward, hitting her shoulder. Claire caught the railing just as the flashlight spun out, clattering to the floor. The cable above moaned, threads straining. Noah gripped the stretcher, his voice raw. Claire, I'm here, she shouted, heart slamming in her chest. He looked at her, really looked, like a man memorizing a face before the fall. If this goes, he said quietly, I want you to let go. Her breath caught. You think I'd let you die here? His voice softened, breaking through the roar. You already did once. The cable above screamed again, a high-pitched metallic cry. The vent showered sparks and dust. Claire grabbed the stretcher rail. Hold him steady. I am. Then stop talking like you're already gone. He laughed once, not joy, but disbelief. You always hated my timing. The nurse sobbed, praying. The patient's monitor flickered erratically. Beep, 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 beep. Noah shouted, he's crashing again. Claire moved instantly, pressing down on the wound, her knees slipping in blood. Give me pressure, the floor groaned. The sound that came next wasn't thunder. It was surrender. The elevator's main cable snapped. For half a second, weight disappeared. Everything lifted, hair, hands, hearts, and in that moment of impossible silence, before the fall began, Noah reached across the gurney, fingers brushing hers, eyes burning through the dark. Claire, then gravity took them. Darkness, impact, silence, silence, the kind that feels alive. For a moment, it was impossible to tell if they were still falling or if the world had simply stopped moving with them. Then came the sound, metal creaking, water dripping somewhere, the faint buzz of a light still fighting to exist. Dr. Claire Duval gasped for air. It came out sharp, ragged, desperate. Pain bloomed down her arm. Her head throbbed in rhythm with her heartbeat. Noah, she whispered, voice trembling. No answer. Her eyes struggled to focus in the dim, broken light. The elevator had collapsed onto its side walls, buckled, ceiling half caved. The gurney was pinned diagonally across the wreckage. A trickle of water dripped from a ruptured pipe, darkening the blood already staining the floor. The nurse lay unconscious by the corner, a thin line of blood at her temple. Claire tried to move. Pain shot through her ribs. She gritted her teeth, pressing her hand against the wound in her side. Noah, she said again, louder now. Talk to me. A groan came from behind the overturned stretcher. Still here, relief hit like oxygen. She crawled toward the sound, every movement dragging through glass and metal shards. He was on his back, one arm pinned under the edge of the gurney, the other pressed against his chest. His face was pale, smeared with blood and dust, but his eyes were open. You okay? She asked, voice barely steady. He winced. Define okay, you're bleeding. He glanced at the dark stain spreading beneath his ribs. So are you. She ignored the pain and leaned over, pressing her hand against the wound. You need pressure. He let out a short laugh, half pain, half disbelief. That's my line. Shut up, she muttered. Save your breath. The elevator groaned again, a metallic sigh that felt like the building itself breathing in exhaustion. Claire glanced up. The ceiling vent was now a jagged opening, a rectangle of smoky light far above. The rescue cable dangled limply, frayed and swaying. They'll see the drop, she said. They'll find us. Noah's voice was faint. You really still believe that? She met his eyes. I have to. He looked at her for a long moment, then smiled weakly. Always did. Her throat tightened. For the first time since the fall, the air felt still enough to notice the details, the drip of water, the slow blink of the monitor, somehow still alive, its faint green line trembling across the screen. And then, the slow, shallow breath of the patient. Claire froze. He's alive. Noah's eyes widened. You're kidding. She leaned closer. Pulse is weak, but it's there. A strangled laugh escaped him. The bastard survived the fall. Her own laugh broke into a sob. You did too. He stared at the patient for a long time, his expression shifting from disbelief to something else, something like surrender. Then he said softly, "You know what they say about miracles, right?" Claire shook her head. What? They always cost something. The words hung in the air, thick and heavy. She frowned, following his gaze, then realized his hand was still pressed to his side. Blood soaked through his shirt, pooling beneath him. She pressed her palm over the wound, feeling the hot pulse of it. Noah, this is deep. He didn't flinch. Guess I'll get my cardio in lying down. Don't, her voice broke. Don't joke right now. He smiled faintly. Can't help it. It's how I stay awake. His eyelids flickered. Noah, I'm fine. She grabbed his face, forcing his eyes open. Look at me. Don't you dare do that. Don't you dare fade on me. He blinked slowly, the edges of his mouth curling. You sound like me. She pressed harder on the wound. Then maybe now you'll listen. For a moment, everything was still again, her hand on his chest. His breath shallow but steady, the hum of the dying monitor like a lullaby for the broken. Then, faintly, through the vent above, the distant echo of voices. Reyes, Duval, can you hear us? Claire looked up, hope breaking through exhaustion. They found us. Noah tried to lift his head, grimaced. Tell them we've got one live patient. And a stubborn doctor. She smiled through tears. Which one are you? He tried to laugh but coughed instead, blood catching at the corner of his lips. Her smile vanished. You're not fine. He turned his head, his voice barely a whisper. Claire, listen. No, she shook her head, pressing down harder. Save it. He closed his eyes. There's something you need to know. Her heart skipped. Don't. She wasn't the last one, he said quietly. What, Eliza? She wasn't the last mistake I made. She froze. He looked at her, eyes glassy now. You were. The words hit harder than the fall. Her voice came out a whisper. Don't you dare put that on me. He smiled soft, almost tender. It's not blame, it's truth. I pushed you away because I couldn't lose someone twice. Claire stared at him, tears cutting clean lines through the grime on her cheeks. You think distance saves people? It saves what's left of you, he said faintly. The voices above grew louder now. We're cutting through the roof. Hold on. Dust rained down as a saw blade began slicing through the metal above, showering sparks into the dim air. Claire looked up at the light widening through the smoke, then back at Noah, whose eyes were starting to unfocus. Noah, she shook him. Stay with me. He blinked, smiling faintly. Still here, you better be. His voice was almost gone. Claire, what? He exhaled softly, almost a sigh. You were the only thing I did right. And then his hand went slack. The saw above stopped. The voices shouted something she didn't hear it. Her ears were ringing, the world narrowing to the small space between her heartbeat and his stillness. She pressed her forehead to his chest. Noah, don't do this. The air thickened. The light from above poured down through the jagged cut in the roof, golden and cruel, illuminating the wreckage like a confession written in blood. She whispered against his shirt, her voice breaking into sobs. You don't get to leave me in the dark again. The monitor beside her twitched. Once, twice, beep, beep. Her head snapped up, a pulse, and then, beneath it, the faint sound of his voice, barely there, a ghost through the static of his breath. Still, here. Light poured through the torn ceiling like a wound in the dark, golden, trembling, full of dust and noise. Dr. Reyes, Dr. Duval, do you copy? Claire blinked up at the beam of daylight slicing through the smoke. Her throat burned when she tried to answer. We're here, the voice echoed back, faint but clear. Hold tight, we're cutting an access path. Rescue team ETA for minutes. For minutes. It felt like a lifetime, or maybe less. She turned back to Noah. His skin had gone ashen, the edges of his lips tinted blue. Blood still seeped slowly between her fingers, stubborn as breath itself. Come on, she whispered. Not now. Not when help's coming, his eyelids fluttered. Told you I wasn't going anywhere. You're bleeding through the clamp, she said, pressing down harder. If you'd stop talking for 5 seconds, he smiled faintly. If I stop talking, you'll think I'm gone. Don't joke, I'm not. I just want to hear you one last time. Don't you dare, she said sharply. You're not saying goodbye. He stared up at her, not pleading, just quiet. You can't keep fixing things by refusing to let them end. Her chest tightened. I learned that from you. A flicker of something crossed his face, regret. Maybe tenderness, maybe both. Then maybe I taught you wrong. The noise above grew louder. Saws, voices, the clang of tools striking metal. The smell of smoke drifted through the vent, rubber, oil, something burning. Claire, he said suddenly, his voice rasping. You need to go first, she frowned. What, when they open it up? You go before me, she shook her head, her voice breaking. You've got internal bleeding. You need immediate, I'm dead weight right now. You're not dead anything, she said fiercely. Don't talk like that, Claire, no. She slammed her palm against the floor, the sound echoing through the wreckage. You don't get to play martyr. Not this time. You fight. You hear me? He closed his eyes. You always sound stronger when you're scared. Then I must be a damn superhero, she snapped. The nurse groaned softly in the corner, stirring. Claire looked over, relief flashing through her exhaustion. She's waking up. Noah turned his head weakly. Good. That makes 2 of us. The metal above them shrieked as another section peeled away. A flood of light hit them full on, blinding and holy. Voices shouted through the opening. We see them. 2 conscious, 1 injured. Prepare the winch. Claire shielded her eyes, squinting up at the rescuers. We've got 1 critical male, massive blood loss. Copy that. Stabilize him. We'll drop the harness. She turned back to Noah, her voice trembling. You hear that? We're getting out, he exhaled slowly. I hear it. Good. A shadow appeared in the light, a paramedic lowering a harness through the jagged hole. The cable swung gently above the wreckage. Secure the patient first, the rescuer shouted. Claire nodded, guiding the line toward the gurney. Her hands shook as she clipped it into place. They're taking him first, Noah coughed. Good. He deserves it, she looked at him. You both do. The patient's stretcher rose slowly, scraping against twisted metal. Claire watched until it disappeared into the brightness above. The light swallowed him whole. Noah's breathing grew slower, the rhythm uneven. Stay with me, she whispered. I'm here, he said faintly. You always hated silence, only when it means you're gone. The rescue cable dropped again, this time with 2 harnesses. 2 at a time, a voice called down. We can take 1 now, then come back for the other. Claire looked up then at Noah. His eyes were already on her. You first, he said again. No, Claire. I said no. His tone sharpened, a rare authority that used to stop interns mid-sentence. That's an order, she stared at him. I stopped taking your orders a long time ago. He smiled, weak but real. You never stopped listening though, her eyes burned. Stop talking like we're in some tragic movie. We're both getting out, he exhaled, his voice a whisper now. I can't feel my legs, the words froze her. What, the fall? Must have fractured something. She shook her head violently. No, you don't get to. He grabbed her wrist, weak but firm. You won't lift me without killing us both. You know that. Tears blurred her vision. Then I'll die trying. Don't, he said softly. You don't get to join me in every mistake. Shut up, Noah. Claire, he swallowed hard. You still remember that night? The one I said none of it mattered? Her breath caught. I never forgot. I lied. The light flickered, catching the wetness on her cheeks. He smiled faintly. It mattered. Every second of it. Her hand pressed against his cheek. Then don't let it end here. His eyes fluttered closed. It already did. I'm just fixing the ending. Above them, the rescuers shouted again. We need someone on the line. Now, the nurse, still dazed, blinked. Go. I'll stay with him. Claire shook her head, torn between reason and devotion. The rescuers shouted again. Now or never. Noah squeezed her hand weakly. Go, Claire. Her heart cracked. Noah, he forced a smile. You said it once, nobody dies alone in your watch, so I'll hold you to that. You'll be there when I wake up. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to say yes, but the truth was trembling between them, fragile as glass. Promise me, he whispered. Her voice broke. I promise. The nurse grabbed her arm, pulling her toward the harness. He'll bleed out if we wait. Claire hesitated, then slipped the strap across her shoulders. Her hands trembled as she gripped his. I'll see you in the light, she whispered. He nodded faintly, his lips curling in the ghost of a smile. You already are it. The cable jerked upward, and the world fell away beneath her. The wreckage, the dust, the blood, all shrinking to a scene she'd spend the rest of her life replaying. Through the haze, she saw Noah look up at her one last time, bathed in gold and ruin. Then her vision blurred. Light, weightlessness, silence. The light was blinding. For the first time in hours, Claire couldn't hear the metal screaming, couldn't feel the weight of the elevator pressing against her lungs. Only wind, only sky. Hands grabbed her from above, pulling her through the jagged mouth of the shaft. She collapsed onto the broken floor of the service level, gasping, her scrubs slick with blood, some hers, most not. Dr. Duval, someone shouted. We've got her. A flood of figures surrounded her, paramedics, firefighters, nurses she didn't know. The noise of chaos roared again. Stretchers, radios, shouts, but she didn't hear any of it. All she heard was the voice still echoing in her head. Promise me. Her eyes darted back to the hole she'd come from. The cable swayed, glinting in the light. Below it, the wreckage was nothing but shadow. Dr. Reyes is still down there, she shouted. A firefighter tried to steady her. We're going back for him. You need medical attention first. She pushed him off. No, you go now. Ma'am, you've got a fractured rib and I said go. Her voice cut through the chaos like a scalpel. For a moment, everything stilled. Then, with a nod, two rescue techs moved toward the opening, attaching their lines. Claire stood, breath ragged, holding onto a railing for balance. The sunlight through the broken ceiling felt too bright to cruel. She watched them descend, the cables unwinding slowly, the harnesses vanishing into the dark below. A medic approached her with a blanket. You're in shock. Sit down, doctor. I'm not leaving him. He hesitated. Is he conscious? He was. Her voice cracked. He is. The medic glanced at the pit, then back at her. We'll get him, but the words sounded like a prayer more than a promise. She turned away, scanning the floor. The patient they'd pulled up earlier lay on a stretcher nearby, intubated, alive. His monitor beeped steadily, cruelly calm compared to the storm inside her chest. She sank to her knees beside him, staring at the slow rise and fall of his chest. You made it, she whispered. You actually made it, but her voice wasn't talking to him. The medics shouted something behind her, a call for more equipment, a rope, a winch. The sound of urgency. The sound of hope fighting physics. Claire pressed her hand to her temple, trying to breathe through the dizziness. Everything felt too loud, the alarms, the rain, the hum of machines. Then, faintly, the ground trembled again. She froze. No. A low groan rose from the depths, the kind that vibrates through the spine, more felt than heard. One of the rescuers at the shaft shouted, Cable tension's failing. Pull us back. Wait, Claire screamed, stumbling forward. He still, but before she could finish, the sound came, that terrible, final metallic cry. The ground shuddered. A gust of hot air rushed upward as the cable tore free from its anchor, snapping like a gunshot. The shaft exploded in a spray of dust and light. No. Claire lunged forward, coughing through the smoke. No, no. Strong arms caught her, a firefighter dragging her back. It's not safe. She fought him, screaming. You don't understand. He's doctor, it's over. The words hit harder than any fall. She went still, trembling, staring at the empty hole where the last of the light disappeared. Over. The word didn't fit in her mouth. It didn't fit in her heart. She tore free of the firefighter's grip, collapsing to her knees by the edge of the shaft. The world blurred around her, dust, light, color all fading into that hollow silence again. Then a sound. Beep. Faint, buried beneath the noise. She froze. Beep. Not from the monitors above, from below. She pressed her ear against the floor, eyes wide. Noah, nothing. Then, through the static of crumbling concrete, a voice, faint, cracked but real. Claire. Her hand flew to her mouth. Claire, the voice said again, weak but certain. You still owe me one apology. Tears blurred everything. She turned to the firefighters. He's alive. They hesitated, disbelief, confusion. I heard him, she shouted. He's alive. One of them leaned over the edge, flashlight trembling in his grip. There's movement. Holy shit. Claire grabbed the spare harness, ignoring the hands reaching to stop her. Lower me, doctor. It's not stable, neither am I. She clipped the hook to the line before anyone could stop her and swung herself over the edge. The light above became smaller, dimmer, until it was just a halo. The air grew colder. The smell of metal and smoke thickened. Her boots hit wreckage, tilted floor panels, scattered glass. She landed hard, pain slicing up her leg, but she didn't stop. The flashlight beam swept across the wreck. Dust, blood, twisted steel, and then a shape, half buried under debris. An arm. Still, her breath caught. She stumbled forward, pulling pieces of metal away with her bare hands. Noah, the rubble shifted. His face emerged through the dust, pale, bruised, but alive. Barely. His eyes opened. Took you long enough. A sob broke out of her like laughter. You were an idiot. He tried to smile. So I've been told. She dropped to her knees beside him, pressing her hand to his chest. His heartbeat was weak, but it was there. You should have gone, he murmured. I made a promise. He exhaled, a sound between a sigh and a prayer. Then I guess I have to keep mine. Which is? He looked up at her, eyes glassy, but full of that impossible steadiness. To wake up, above them, the rope creaked again. Voices shouted orders. The beam of light widened, gold cutting through the ruin. For the first time since the fall, the air didn't smell like death. It smelled like rain. And in that fragile, fleeting calm, she whispered back, then open your eyes, Noah. Because I'm not leaving this time. The hospital felt like it was breathing again. Generators hummed to life somewhere above. Lights flickered, one by one, across the ruined halls, weak, uneven, but alive. And in the wreckage below, two people clung to the faintest rhythm of survival. Move slow, Claire said, voice trembling but focused. If we lift the debris wrong, it'll collapse again. The rescue team's voices echoed around her, muted by dust masks and tension. Hands worked fast, hydraulic spreaders, cutting tools, the hiss of air and sparks, until the metal pinning Noah's legs finally gave way. He gasped, every muscle locking in pain. I've got you, Claire whispered, her hands pressed over his chest. I've got you. He looked at her, eyes half open, pupils unfocused, but that small ghost of a smile was still there. You said that before, and I meant it both times. The paramedic crouched beside them. We're clear to lift. Ready? Claire nodded, her voice hoarse. Ready. On the count of 3, they heaved him up, the stretcher sliding beneath his body. He let out a choked sound, half breath, half agony, but he didn't pass out. The rescuers lifted. Dust fell like rain. The cable above groaned under the weight. Steady, someone shouted. Claire followed close, her hand never leaving his arm. The light grew brighter with every meter, gold turning to white, shadow to day. The air thinned, the world widened. And then, finally, they broke through. The roof hatch opened, spilling sunlight like salvation. For a heartbeat, everything froze, the contrast between the hell below and the clean, sterile brightness of the world above. Noah blinked against it, wincing. Feels like heaven. Claire laughed softly, exhausted. Don't say that word. Not yet. They lowered him onto a stretcher, medics rushing in, machines beeping, voices overlapping, but Claire heard none of it. She just stood there, shaking, covered in blood and dust, staring down at him like he was both miracle and ghost. A hand touched her shoulder, the chief trauma nurse. You need treatment too, Dr. Duval. Claire didn't move. Her eyes were locked on the man being wheeled away toward the emergency bay. Go with him, the nurse said gently. So she did. The air glowed under fluorescent light. The air smelled of iodine, smoke, and rain. Noah lay on a trauma bed, surrounded by a team working fast for lines, compressions, sutures, orders shouted like prayers. Claire stood just beyond the circle, her hands trembling, her uniform stiff with blood. One of the nurses turned to her. "Dr. Duval, you're not cleared to be here." Claire didn't answer. She just watched the monitor, that fragile green line pulsing up and down, her entire world balanced on its rhythm. Then the sound, flatline, the room froze. Claire's body moved before her mind caught up. She pushed through the team, grabbing the paddles. "Charge to 200. Doctor, do it." They charged. She pressed the paddles to his chest. Clear, thump, nothing. Again, clear, thump. The room held its breath. Then beep, a single blip, then another, a steady rhythm. The sound hit her like a heartbeat inside her own ribs. She dropped the paddles, leaning over him, tears streaking through the grime on her face. "You don't listen to orders, do you?" Noah's eyelids fluttered. His voice came out a broken whisper. "Only yours." She laughed, a raw, shaking sound that didn't know if it was joy or grief. "Good, because I'm not done yelling at you." He smiled weakly, eyes closing again. "That's comforting." Hours later, the storm had passed. The hospital was quiet again, the kind of quiet that comes after chaos, where even the air seems to whisper gratitude. Claire stood by his bed in the ICU, now cleaned, calm, unrecognizable from the wreck they'd escaped. Machines hummed softly beside him, monitors steady. The bandage around his ribs was fresh, the color back in his skin. Her hand rested lightly on his. Noah stirred, eyes opening to the golden light streaming through the blinds. "Morning," she said softly. He blinked. "Feels different." "It is." He looked at her hand on his. "You kept your promise." "I always do." A pause. "Doesn't mean I'll stop being stupid," he said faintly. "I wouldn't know what to do if you did." He smiled, then looked toward the window. The city shimmered outside, washed clean by the rain, sun warming the glass. "You ever notice," he murmured, "how hospitals always smell like endings?" She shook her head. "No, not today." The monitor beeped steadily, a simple, perfect rhythm. Claire squeezed his hand, her voice a whisper. "Today, it smells like beginnings fade out." The light lingers on their joined hands, one bandaged, one trembling as the screen fades to white. The last sound, a single heartbeat. Beep.